All right. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are joining us from. Thank you for joining us for our second webinar of our fall semester of our Family Engagement webinar series. My name is Heather Deer, and I'm the Director of Family Engagement here at William and Mary. Hopefully, you all have just enjoyed maybe a couple of days with your student over fall break, or at least you heard that your student was resting a little bit over fall break here in Williamsburg. This session will be recorded just like all of our other sessions and will be available on our YouTube channel in just a couple days, and we'll send out a link to a recording. Want to give our presenter as much time as we have, and we'll do questions at the end. Megan from the Advising Center is joining us today to talk all things academic planning, as that is the next big step for many students as they think ahead to the spring semester. So, Megan, going to go ahead and turn it over to you. Thank you for being with us again today. One of our most frequent presenters in our family engagement webinar series. As you can imagine, academic planning is a big conversation among students and families and lots of questions. So thanks for being one of our most well-represented campus partners on the webinar series.
Yeah, thank you so much, Heather. I'm always happy to join you all and certainly, give as much information as I can to families. And thank you all again for joining me. If you have joined with me in the past, as Heather mentioned, you'll see that we have undergone a name change recently over the summer. Just go ahead and share. So as Heather mentioned, I'm Megan Sanbury. I'm the director for now the Advising Center. If you have joined me in the past, thank you for returning. And also, you may have seen other webinars about academic advising under the Office of Undergraduate Academic Affairs. So it's the same office, same services, nothing has changed. Trying to clarify our mission and our purpose, just to make things a little bit easier for students on campus. When you say, go ask advising, now it's very clear who they're asking. So you may see that shift, but nothing has changed logistically for your students. It's just a matter of making things a little bit easier to find. So today I'd like to take a little bit of time, as Heather mentioned, to talk through what advising looks like here at William and Mary, give you a little bit of a fact or update about the college curriculum, because I know that's oftentimes, y'all and your students have questions about that. Tools your students use as part of advising, what's coming up next, how you can help support your student during this time, and then, as Heather mentioned, answer any questions for you all as well. So we'll kick things off by talking about the types of advisors that students can engage with here on campus. We have a professional advising team as part of my staff. So we have 3 professional advisors, academic advisors that work with students. Your student will also have worked with a peer advisor that's facilitated through our office in right before they started, so either in the summer or January, depending on if they joined us in the fall or the spring. So our office kind of encompasses all of those things as students are incoming um, as part of their academic planning. So we have professional advisors. We have folks that work with academic exceptions. So if your student needs support in navigating some kind of special academic circumstance, the policies at William and Mary, anything like that, petitioning for something, we have a resource in our office to help support that. We also think about academic planning post-graduation for students. So we kind of help them think through their time here, what their academic life looks like here. And then my office also houses support for fellowship or scholarship post-grad. So if you think about that, it's Marshall, Mitchell, Fulbright. We just got through that season. We just closed up the books on Fulbright and supporting students through that process. So we also have resources that can help with that. Our office also facilitates the faculty advising model. So that's kind of the next piece that you'll see. We have that faculty advising model here at William & Mary. I think it's something pretty special for us, where every student is paired with a faculty advisor when they come in. Our office helps facilitate that matching process. And then they kind of graduate into their major advisor, which they can choose. So their pre-major faculty advisor is assigned to them based on how they filled out a survey as they were coming in and kind of their preferences at the time. But as you know, preferences change for students. We'll talk a little bit about that as they're kind of working through their options and working with folks. And so by the time they're ready to declare their major, which can be by the time they've earned 39 credits, has to be done by the time they earn 54. They will choose a major advisor. That'll be a faculty in the department they're choosing to declare a major with, and they will work with that faculty advisor until they graduate. So that person's going to help them with research opportunities, curriculum, making sure they're on track to graduate, all of those good things that advisors can help support. In addition to those that may be assigned to them specifically, we also have faculty that work with pre-professional programs. So when you think about that, you're thinking about pre-med, law, education. I'm going to show you our website. So we've got med, we've got nursing and PA, physician assistant, physical therapy, occupational therapy, athletic training, vet, pharmacy and dental, law, engineering, business education. All of these faculty, typically advisors, are helping to support students who are looking to enter a program that may have specific academic requirements, like med school, by the time they're done with their degree here. So they also have access to these faculty advisors. Typically, they have some supporting, information that students can work with as well. So there's lots of opportunities to kind of get connected with those resources. So what does that support look like? One second. Full screen, great. So these are all the things that academic advising support can really help students with, and that's through my office and working with a professional advisor. That's their faculty advisors. That's through their peers. That's through the folks in student success and student affairs. There's lots of ways that they can get advising support. Specifically, academic advising support kind of helps connect all of these pieces together for them on their academic journey. So you'll see we work with them through the foundation. That's what I was talking about, the kind of that start college curriculum. They go through college studies. They have that peer advisor that helps them. We do that matching process and exploration once they're ready to declare, thinking about their plan, opportunities. If nothing else, think of advising as a really strong connector, right? Like we may not have all the answers, their faculty advisor may not have all the answers, but we certainly have ways to connect them with resources on campus or each other who have engaged in similar opportunities, and help connect them in that way. So there's lots of opportunity for them to get additional information through advising. So you'll see that one of those things that we help support students with, and certainly they talk to their assigned faculty advisor about, is this idea of the college curriculum. So this is what we consider our general education curriculum. It's the thing that every William & Mary student does, regardless of what major they declare. So every student has this in common. They all do these pieces, parts, and they do them all the way through their time here at William & Mary. So even after they've declared a major, because it's built that way by the faculty intentionally, so it's kind of woven all the way through. So it's not something that they need to complete fully before they declare a major. So they don't have to do it in their first 2 years and check all those boxes and be done. It's specifically built to have them build some skills and build on those skills and have a culminating piece of that as part of their capstone, which is typically, I'd say 99% of their time done within their major. So there are kind of three sections to the COLL curriculum or the college curriculum. We call it COLL for short. It's just easier. Doesn't actually stand for anything. It's just the shortening of college. There are really three sections, the easiest way to think about it. And I'll actually show you in a few slides what that looks like for them when they look at their degree audit. So there are proficiencies. That's the math, language, and performing arts. There are COLL courses, which have that COLL in front of them. So these are the ones that are specifically William & Mary courses that are designed in a way to help students build skills on communication, like the 100 and 150. 200 is kind of methodologies. 300 and 350 is thinking about global and American perspective, maybe outside their own. And then 400 is their capstone. And so that is the one that's going to be done in their major. So those courses are specifically designed to help them build skills in critical thinking, like I mentioned, and communication. Every piece typically has some sort of component about, building a project and presenting it in some way. And again, those all kind of reinforce on each other and they can be taken with the exception of the 100 and 150 and the 400, which are kind of bookends. So 100 and 150 are typically done in their first 2 to 3 semesters. 400 is typically done in their last 2 to potentially 3, but often 2 in their senior year. Happens as that capstone. Everything else is kind of woven through as it fits with their plans. Students can declare and take these courses, like I said, at the same time. And then the last little section of the college curriculum is this idea of knowledge domains. These are additional courses that students take that cover a range. There's 3 other classes that students take as part of this, and it covers a range of areas. It's kind of how we think about maybe what you would have experienced in your college general education curriculum, like one math, one music, one. Those are more related to kind of areas that cover in those domains, kind of splits things off that way. So you'll see that really probably what's most important for you to think about is yes, it's broken down in those sections. Yes, it's taken throughout. They can overlap some of that between a major and a minor. So uh, they're not totally separate. And then you'll see I put a little asterisk next to a couple things. Proficiencies and knowledge domains, they can use transfer credit or pre-matriculation, so APIB, test credit. Traditional transfer course credit can be used to satisfy those requirements. So the big thing is they have to take all those COLL courses here at William & Mary. Those are specifically designed and approved by the faculty here at William & Mary. And so it is very, very rare and involves a petition process to even request that one of those courses be satisfied, one of those requirements be satisfied by an outside course. 300, I think, is probably the only exception there in that like students who study abroad, that's how they can meet their global perspectives courses by studying abroad, which comes back as transfer credit, but that is how it's built. We have campus courses, we have abroad courses that satisfy that. The DC program has courses that satisfy that. There's kind of a few different ways within William & Mary to satisfy that requirement, but everything else is taken here as part of their degree. So how do students know what to do with all of this? And how do they talk to their advisors about this? And how do advisors know what to do? Well, they can certainly look at the webpage. It's all outlined there and kind of how that works. There's lots of resources, and for you all too. That's open access for you all to kind of take a look at that. If you're really, dying to know about the college curriculum one day and have some extra time on your hands, you're welcome to go ahead and take a look at those web pages. But for their purposes, for your student, they will use what we call DegreeWorks. So here are the tools in which they can use to talk about things advising related. Um, DegreeWorks is going to be the big one. You'll hear me say that quite a bit. They should be checking that early and often. College Studies walked them through how to use DegreeWorks as kind of that initial step, which is that asynchronous Blackboard course they took when they first started. But they should really be revisiting that DegreeWorks audit every semester at least once. And typically a few times. Certainly getting ready for an advising meeting is really helpful to have, them to have the background and where they've met requirements. So that audit shows them all of the requirements I just told you, all of their major requirements, and then what courses they've taken that satisfy those requirements. So I'm going to show you kind of what that looks like. Just get out of full screen. Oop, that's not it. So this is what a DegreeWorks audit looks like. And so I've pulled a new students audit. There's no identifying information on here. It just kind of gives you an idea of where things fall. Students can see their overall GPA. They can see where they are overall, like for their entire degree. So every student comes in undeclared Bachelor of Arts. That's how we can work with them. My office is actually under Arts and Sciences, so we get the opportunity to work with all students since they come in undeclared, which is great. And even after they declare, our office can work with them all the way through their time here. So we're happy to, be there as a resource no matter where they end up declaring. In or outside of arts and sciences. So they can see overall how they're doing. A student needs 120 credits to graduate. It will tell them how many credits they have. That includes anything they're registered for, they're working on right now, and how many credits they need left to get to that 120 overall. All students need half of their degree here at William & Mary. So what this in residence mean? It doesn't mean like if they go to study abroad and it's a William & Mary program, comes back as William & Mary classes with a grade, that still counts as part of their in residence. It needs to be a William & Mary class. So that's not transfer credits, not APIB. That is purely William & Mary classes. Even if they take place on the DC campus, DC Center, or in another means that isn't literally physically on campus, if it's online, it still counts as their in residence. They need to take at least half of their degree here. And that's the same for their major too, and their minor. They need to take at least half their major, at least half their minor here at William & Mary. Obviously, this person doesn't have a GPA yet, so it's going to give them notification because the minimum to graduate is a 2.0. And then it will start to just give them an overall view of like, yep, they still have college curriculum requirements and major requirements since they're not declared yet. Anyways. So then it moves on to the college curriculum. So here's why it's kind of broken down in 3 sections. You can see here, these are the proficiencies at the top. You'll see a couple things here. You can see an in-progress course, so that's something they're taking in the fall, is that French course. You can see also that they took a placement exam. That's where it says may enroll at a certain level in language. So if your student needs or wants to continue in a language, but they don't have coursework that gets them there just yet. They maybe they took 4 years in high school and they don't have necessarily transfer credit for that, but they want to continue a language. They can take a placement exam, place into a course, and go from there. There's the math proficiency and the arts proficiency. You can see that as well. And then this middle chunk is going to show them those COLL classes. So you can see this person is taking their first year experience course. Those COLL 200 courses are in there, 300, 350, 400. So anything you see that has that little blue half circle in means it's probably in progress. So it's happening right during this semester. Once things are completed, then students see this green check mark here. So that's kind of an indicator for them. Yep, they've already done their math proficiency that came in as transfer credit, as AP credit. Obviously, their placement test is done, and then they'll complete some things after they finish their courses this semester. So those call requirements are in the middle, and then they also have these additional knowledge domains. So you can see that two of those courses were taken by AP, advanced placement credit, and then they're taking one more this semester. So this is what helps keep them on track. Once they declare a major, that major block will slot here. Anything that doesn't count towards a major or a minor or the call curriculum will drop into this electives bucket down below. Because a student is undeclared, once they declare a major, some of these things that are listed as electives currently are going to slot up as requirements for their major. So this is a really handy, easy way for them to see where they are. It also gives them their full schedule at the bottom. It shows them what they're currently enrolled in. And then for students that haven't declared quite yet, they can run what's called a what if. So you'll see at the top here, they're going to have this academic tab and then this what if tab. This is where they can run, what if I want to be a biology major? What if I want to do philosophy? And it will populate this major block down here. And it will slot any classes they've already taken or that they are taken into that major so they can get an idea of where they are. So it's a really powerful tool. Students are trying to kind of gauge, what if I wanted to declare a second major? I'm considering this one major. What does that look like? What if I want a minor? It's a really handy way for them to see where things will fit. There's also a planning tool in there where they can enter future courses. So if they know they want to take future courses, it can show them where that slots in. As well. So again, you may never see this again, and that's okay as long as you know your student is looking at it, because that's going to be important for them to keep on track. Their advisor looks at it. That's the first thing I always look at when a student wants to talk with somebody in my office, just to kind of get a gauge, an overall picture for where they are academically. So it's a really powerful tool, super handy. If you happen to ask your student about it and they haven't looked at it yet, please encourage them to do so. There are still some students who make it all the way through, and by just working with their advisor, are totally fine, but have not actually looked at DegreeWorks. So I encourage your student not to be one of those students who never gets a chance to look at it and see where they are. Super helpful. Um, and because advising is a partnership, it's something that advise their advisor and they will work on together. So it's always good for them to have a handle on kind of where they are with things. So DegreeWorks obviously is a big one. The catalog is another. So the catalog is actually their contract with the college, with the university, has all of our policies, and has all of the requirements for things like the call curriculum or majors. And so if nothing else, they should default to the catalog to look to see what the requirements are, because that is where everything lives. Again, if you're looking for some super fun reading later today, you can always peruse the catalog, but certainly it is a resource, it's a reference. It's super helpful for students to be aware and for you all to be aware that that exists. I've tried to put some QR codes in here. I'm hoping that's helpful if you do happen to be watching this later. That will link to all these things. And Heather's always really good about making sure everybody's got links and resources if you've got questions later as well. So catalog, DegreeWorks, those are the requirements-based tools that students will use. And then how do they know what to take and how things, meet these requirements? One, they will work with their advisor, especially for their major, to kind of help work through all those things. DegreeWorks will help them with that. But then Path, which is our registration system, you can actually search by attribute in there. So you can look, I want all the Call 100 courses that are being offered in the spring. It will filter out by just that what we call an attribute. It's the thing that's attached to the course. And then they know if I pick this course, it's going to meet that requirement. So they can also kind of do it that way where they know, okay, I need a Call 200 ALV. How do I find that for the spring? I will search for any available course that's a Call 200 ALV. So it helps when thinking about, since it's not explicitly structured, part of the thing about liberal arts is giving students this ability to explore and to try different things. So it's not going to be a set of classes, a specific set of classes, except for potentially in their major. But this college curriculum is going to be a little bit more open-ended. And so helping students kind of focus in on what meets those requirements and what kinds of courses they want to choose as they're across disciplines. I really encourage them to use that attribute piece in registration, in path, in order to really understand kind of what's meeting what. And additionally, if your student is sort of trying to figure out what to do and maybe has a few options in mind for a major or a path, or is just totally undecided, or is wanting to make a change, there's lots of different places that students can be on kind of this continuum about what their major is and kind of where they land. So I also want to give you some resources from the Office of Career Development and Professional Engagement. They have some great free resources for students that helps them explore their values, what's important to them. There's literally a resource that's called What Do I Do with This Major? So that you can look up by major and see what kinds of fields and jobs that students can engage in as part of that. So there's both kind of that introspective look at kind of what would fit for them and kind of helping them think that through. Or if they're like, hey, I want to be a philosophy major, but like, what do I do with that? There's also just some resources there that help them understand kind of next steps from undergraduate to graduate work or a career or whatever that looks like for them. So as even though that is career oriented in some ways, it also really helps them in academic planning to really think through what kind of things work for them, what values do they have, where do their strengths lie. So when talking with an advisor, an academic advisor, it's also really helpful for them to have that in mind. And there's some really great resources that they can use there. So now what is the next, right now we've hit midterms. Midterm grading season started October 6th. So last week, just before they went to fall break. You may hear students talk about midterms into November. Sometimes that's just what faculty instructors call their tests and exams. But the midterm period has started, so a lot of things are going on for students. You'll see a pickup in kind of the workload potentially at this point in the semester. And we'll roll into registration and homecoming is coming up, which is exciting. And all those exciting things are still happening on campus. So this gives them an idea and you an idea of kind of how the big academic pieces come together in the next month or so. So the next up is we have an advising period is typically when we encourage students to meet with their advisors between this October 20th, 31st. Um, they certainly can meet with their advisors at any time, and typically I would say they meet with them at least once a semester around this registration time, but oftentimes students will meet more, which is totally fine. They'll likely hear a little reach out from their advisor at this point. Certainly if they're a new student, they have a required meeting this semester, so they just started in the fall, or even if they just started last spring, they will have another required meeting with their pre-major faculty advisor during this time before registration. So that's going to happen in the coming weeks. If students are ready to declare and they want to make sure that major is declared before registration, then they need to do that by October 24th, excuse me. They can really do that at any time, but because they need to be put into the system, if they really want it to be in place by the time our registration is being processed, it has to be in by the 24th. But like I said, they can do it really at any point. Something to keep in mind, like I said, in this busy season, which feels hard because we're both planning for the future, it's something to keep in mind for your students. They're planning for the spring and planning for next semester, planning for maybe the winter even, and they still have to deal with what's happening for them right now. So they're making choices about what's coming in for exam grades and what it looks like, kind of taking a pulse check. They'll get midterm grades. They're not Students are typically aware of their letter grades or maybe where they are in a letter grade range, but our midterm grades are just done by acceptable, marginal, and unacceptable. So typically faculty can put those in just to give students a guideline for kind of where they're at this point in the semester. And then if they have to make any choices about what's happening for them this semester, maybe they need to withdraw from a class, that has to be done by October 27th. So again, that's something sometimes, even though they're planning for the next registration, they're also working with their advisor and thinking about this semester and if everything is working and going well for them like they had expected. And then they'll roll into cart building. So we'll start cart building in Halloween. So that'll be fun. So that will happen starting the 31st. And what that means is that our registration process, and there are certainly, I know I've talked about this in another webinar, so I'll put in a plug for some pre-recorded things. If you have questions specifically about cart building, one, the registrar's office has really great resources that help students walk through what that looks like, how to do that, when to do that, that whole process. And then there are also some resources still online. You're welcome to kind of go through those. I'm not going to go through it in super detail today. But they will build a cart, they'll put in their classes, they'll prioritize. And then on the back end, after November 5th, we will do some, it's called optimization. We'll run that process to get students a schedule. They will have that schedule before they head out for Thanksgiving. So they'll have it on November 9th, that first schedule, and they will have a range of credits. Some will be full-time and some won't in that first round, which is totally expected. Then they will have the ability to do add drop starting the 10th. And so typically we tier that by social class on the 10th, which means seniors could get in first, then juniors and sophomores, then freshmen or first year students. We do that by social class so that students who are, closest to graduation have the ability in that first day to make changes to their schedule. And then there is an add drop period that happens, through November and December. And then they will also be able to make adjustments at the start of the semester and later January as well. And then I throw the final exam period on there as kind of a plug for a couple things. I know that feels both distant and close at the same time. The exam schedule is always up the semester before. So students should really look at that exam schedule, one, when they're doing registration. So let's say they get their schedule back in November, they're happy with it. They can actually look at the final exam schedule for the spring already. And they should kind of make note of where all their final exams fall. If they have conflicting final exams, if there is a literal scheduling conflict, they can work with a form in my office that helps students navigate when to take it at a different time if they have literal conflicts. And then there's emergency conflicts that come up for students. Typically closer to the exam period, they would work with academic well-being and student affairs to work through a process for that approval. But it's always something that's just good to be aware of for students is that final exam period will get busy, and checking that schedule early is really helpful to know, do I have two exams in the same day? Do I have them back to back? What does that look like? And are there spaces where when there's conflict, we can make an adjustment to when they take an exam? So I throw that on there as just awareness. Let's get through midterms first, but certainly being aware of that exam schedule is always really helpful. So what are some tips for you all as you think about supporting your student at this moment in time of a semester and really every midterm of a semester? It always looks like this. There's always exams and grades and considerations for your schedule this semester and what that looks like, opportunities to do lots of things. And then they're always looking ahead to the next semester, or maybe they're looking at graduation or post-grad opportunities, lots of things kind of happening at this moment in time. So when you think about midterms, again, engaging with your student in a way that kind of leaves it open for them to talk about, how's it going for them? What's their stress level? How's time management going? Again, they have that withdraw deadline option, kind of checking in about grades or feedback if that's something that you typically talk about with your student. And encouraging, there's tutoring and coaching, which is a free opportunity through academic well-being that can help students in building skills around academics, encouraging them for faculty office hours and engage in any wellness resources they need, whether that's counseling or care support services, anything that kind of helps support them in what could be a higher stress moment for them kind of at this time. If they're also thinking about, major exploration, or maybe changing a major, because that can happen for students at certain points as well. Really talking with them about their interests and their goals and really thinking through that exploration process with them. You all have extensive knowledge, your children and your student, really helping to support them and kind of strike that balance between, advice based on your experience and helping them really explore what their options are and exploring those opportunities. And then, engaging about, meeting with advisors and faculty, how that's going, is always really helpful too as a checkpoint because sometimes, they forget, it gets busy. And then as far as course registration goes, planning ahead is always really helpful. I find most William and Mary students are very good about trying to plan ahead. We often meet with students about graduation checks, like, a year before they're ready to graduate. But certainly, again, checking in with them, talking about course load, what it looked like for them this semester, what are they hoping to do for next semester, what's the balance in their schedule? Is it all econ courses? Is it all STEM? Is it all English? What does that look like and how does that work for them? So you'll see in most of these tips, it's really just engaging with your student kind of where they are in the moment with their planning and with their academics in general, and helping them engage in resources. Again, if you joined me before, I will be a broken record about this until I can't anymore. Is really one of the most powerful things that you all can do is help remind students of their resources and encourage them to engage in them. We will send out midterm grade notifications. So if we identify students who have either marginal, which means like D range-ish grade, or unacceptable, which is right around failing, we will notify students of that and give them their resources again. sometimes that's just like they've only got one grade in, right? And they're good to go. They just need to kind of finish out the semester. And sometimes that means they need to engage in a little bit of tutoring or coaching or whatever that looks like for them. Or using the Writing Communication Center, right? Like they just need somebody to help them get through the process and submit some work. So there's lots of opportunities for resources, and one of the best things that y'all can do is help remind them of that and help them engage in those things as well. Because sometimes we don't know until we see them, and we're always happy to help. So this is just, honestly, this is not even nearly an exhaustive list of resources. Um, these are just some things that help with academics specifically, but there are lots of things on campus that can help support your student at any stage and any opportunity. So I encourage you to do a little bit of poking around the website or like really being engaging in these things is most helpful for helping students kind of understand what those resources are. So I've reached the point where hopefully you only have to hear me talk to you if you ask me a question. Hopefully it gives you some background of kind of where students are and how you can help engage with your student at this point. And I know I see some coming in, so I know y'all have questions, and I will toss it to Heather to open that up.
Wonderful. Okay. I'm going to look through our questions here. Now is a great time, like Megan mentioned, to ask any questions you have using the Q&A feature here in Zoom. Let's see, I'm going to start at the top. Do you ever help students in the joint degree program, or do they need to get all advising through their specific program? We have a family member asking about some classes our student may be taking here and how that may translate to St. Andrews.
Yes, that's a great question. So we support students through the joint degree program, but really they will work with their major advisor and the faculty and staff team that is specific for the joint degree program. They have very specific requirements between those two degrees, and so that's why they have such built up resources, is so they can work with them directly about what that might mean. So I'd say they're assigned a faculty advisor, a major advisor coming in. So they should see that. Again, another thing about DegreeWorks, they can see that at the top of DegreeWorks. So certainly they can reach out to them. There's also a director for the joint degree program who's a faculty member that they can reach out to as well. And then there's a staff person who is, I should say, we're up in Newell Hall on the second floor, and the joint degree program is right across the hall from us. So we're happy if they do land in our way and it's something that's maybe slightly too specific for or detail that's specific to the joint degree program that may be better served, we can walk them right across the hall and get them connected there. So yeah, I would encourage them, especially when it's requirement based like that, about what applies for St. Andrews and here, and kind of the sequence of that. It's always helpful for students to engage with that program. If they want to explore like a minor, like sometimes students are like, hey, I'm going to do this joint degree program, and I'm also thinking about this minor. Sometimes we can help them, think about that more generally at William and Mary, but they have a pretty tight ship there, so it's always good to work with them.
Wonderful. This is a great question.
Mhm.
Which catalog controls for requirements? Is it the one in
Hmm.
effect when they started at William and Mary?
I'm so excited by this question. Nobody ever asked anything about the catalog. That's a great question. Because it does differ. So they follow the catalog, so their college curriculum and general requirements, so academic regulation, continuance, all the like policy-oriented things about being a student at William and Mary, they will follow the catalog from which they entered. So right now, if you started in the fall, you would follow the fall 25, 26 undergraduate catalog for all of those big overreaching policies and the college curriculum. The major ones they declare will follow the catalog when they declare. So let's say something changes. Trying to think of anything that's changed specifically for this year. But let's say I don't know if this is true, but let's say something has changed for econ, the economics major, and they maybe are ready to declare, but they've been working on it last year. When they declare, they will follow the catalog for this year. So that change will go into effect for that student for their major or their minor, anything that they declare in addition to the college curriculum follows the catalog in the year that they declared it. So big picture stuff, the year they come in, and smaller picture stuff, sort of equally as big picture stuff, major and stuff like that, is going to be under the catalog that they declare. That's why DegreeWorks is helpful because it will show you at the top of each section which catalog you're following
Okay.
for both the call and the major and the
That's a
minor.
great question. I
It's a good
haven't seen
question.
that one asked, which I think is
Yeah,
is really interesting.
that's good detail.
Okay. Can a student declare a major in October if they
Mhm.
need those fall credits to meet the minimum number of credits to declare? So do they
Yep.
declare after that semester or can they declare during while it's in progress?
That's a good question. So it's earned credits, which means let's say they're going to have, you know, 40 credits after they complete the fall. That means they have to complete the fall first. So that means they will declare next semester. So it has to be earned, not in progress. There's some things you can do while you're in progress, but for that, declaring a major, it needs to be earned. So and I will say too, sometimes students come in with dual enrollment credits. They come in quite a bit. And so that earned credit also comes from transfer or pre-matriculation kind of test credit things. So oftentimes when students come in with a whole lot and they could maybe declare the second they step on campus, we allow them to wait a little longer. And so we say you can wait until you've earned 39 William and Mary credits if you want to. They can declare early if they want, but we give them a little bit of time because that's really what we encourage students to do when they start here is to use that time to do a little bit of exploration. So if a student is feeling stressed, like, oh my goodness, I'm going to have earned 54 credits by the time I'm done with the fall, but I literally just started, what am I supposed to do? We allow them a little more leeway, and to give them some time to kind of get acclimated and fully make a choice. Again, they can, we won't stop them, but we will give that little bit of grace for students that maybe come in with a lot of credits ahead of time.
Okay, that makes sense. All right. My student really does not know what major they're interested in. Would
Mhm.
making an appointment with your office or one of the three professional advisors be a helpful step?
Sure. I mean, they are welcome to talk with their faculty advisor. We work with training and faculty typically work closely with us as well, and kind of asking questions and getting support. So they're obviously welcome to talk to their faculty advisor. If that feels a little too intimidating and it would be a little bit easier to kind of start somewhere else, they can absolutely make an appointment anytime with somebody in my office, and we can kind of talk them through that decision-making process. Part of that is just helping coach students through that unease of maybe not knowing and doing a little bit of exploration with them and kind of doing out some what if scenarios, talking about all those things, helping them kind of ground it in one place. So yeah, we are absolutely happy to do that. And they certainly can also start that conversation with their faculty advisor as well. So either is an option if whatever one feels like it fits better for them is totally fair.
Wonderful. Hey, we've got good questions coming
Yeah.
in. So I know a lot of what we've talked about kind of relies on students reaching out for help
Mhm.
or scheduling an appointment or asking a question. A family member has asked, my daughter reports that advisors maybe aren't always responsive. What can she do?
Mm.
So I'm curious about um, what can student expect in terms of when they're reaching out to a pre-major or major advisor in terms of responsiveness, and then how do they get that support if they're looking for it elsewhere?
Yeah, that's a great question because we're all humans. Somebody said to me the other day in a meeting, like, we're all 100% human, which is very true, right? So everybody has a different level of engagement with email and faculty. They're teaching classes and they're holding office hours and they're doing all kinds of things on campus. And so I would say typically you should expect to, especially if you have a pre-major advisor and this is your first year, you should be hearing from your faculty advisor sometime the next few weeks to set up your appointment. They should be reaching out to you. If it gets closer to the advising period, you haven't heard from them just yet, then reaching out to them is certainly the great way to do it. Helps keep engaged, for a student to do that. And then give them, I typically give them, 1 to 3 business days, right, to get back to me. And then sometimes we encourage students to follow up. So when a student says, I haven't heard anything, sometimes I like just emailed them that morning. So we tell them, wait a few days, give them, especially if it's like over a weekend, right? Like all those kind of considerations for just people being fall break, right? Like all kinds of things kind of happening. So I would say, within the week of when they emailed, a faculty should be responding to them, I say is fair. And then if for some reason they're having a really hard time connecting, again, sometimes faculty go on leave, like all kinds of things happen, and they can always reach out to my office. They just email this email address, which is advising@wm.edu. That has a number of people monitoring it. We have a great admin who is great at connecting people with all students with all kinds of people. And then it is totally fine if you reach out and say like I haven't heard anything. What am I supposed to do? And we can either work to connect you or your student, I should say, work a student to connect a student, or we certainly can be a resource as well. We also drop in hours every Thursday from 1 to 3. So if a student doesn't necessarily have an appointment, they can pop in. And we typically have people available to answer some quick questions. And if it needs to be longer, we just figure out when to make that next appointment or how to make that connection. So the short end of that long answer is within the week, I would say responsiveness from a faculty member. If they're really having a hard time connecting for some reason, then reach out to us and we'll work to connect or figure out what the next best resource is for the student, depending on what it is that they need help with.
Yep. That's a great answer. I think something you said in there really stuck out to me, which is what I experience working with students sometimes is I think we live in a world right now where
Mhm.
responsiveness can typically be very quick, and they're used to very quick responses from different things. And I think sometimes I engage with students who are like, I sent an email this morning and I have not heard anything, and it's 1 p.m. in the afternoon. And so that's a learning curve for students a lot of times
Yeah.
that 1 to 3 business day time frame is real, especially as our faculty are balancing other responsibilities. And then the art of the follow-up email, I think many
Yes.
students learn over time. I have students in my office who, like, I can tell that they have learned the art of a follow-up email. So I think it's a skill that students learn and also something to keep in mind. And also just to keep in mind, you may hear before any of us that your student hasn't heard from their
Right?
advisor. They
Yep.
may, oddly enough, call you and be like, I haven't heard from my advisor, or I sent an email and I don't know what to do. So good advice during that time frame is send that follow-up email, and if you don't hear anything, go to the advising center so that they can help you out, for sure.
Yep. And I love a follow-up email. I mean, sometimes things just do get in the shuffle, and so I always tell students like it never hurts just to kind of give it that bump,
Yeah,
politely, bump it up. Sometimes they need
yeah.
it.
It's one
Yep.
of those good transferable skills they pick up
Yep.
while they're here at William and Mary. Okay.
Yes.
Looking at our questions here, going to ask just a couple more.
Sure.
My first year student took several AP classes in high school and he's not sure how to get those validated or get any credit for them. What is the process for that?
Yes, that's a great question. So two things. One, I think the bottom line is they have to send their test scores over from the College Board. So they need to go to the College Board and then send their AP test scores over. If they want to check to see which scores would actually come over, there is a guide, a chart that's on the registrar's website that students can go to. And if you just search for AP credit registrar on our website, it can pop up there that tells you which score gets you, what credit here. William and Mary, if you're a student or you want to do that first, before engaging with the College Board, you certainly can do that. And then they just need to contact the College Board and have them sent directly over here to the registrar's office, so that they can be evaluated through the transfer credit process and then be posted after that. So every time you do anything that's outside of William and Mary or student does, it has to come from whatever institution issued that credit. So as much as we would love to have a student just kind of hand us a transcript of some kind, it has to come from whatever entity has issued the credit or the test or whatever that looks like, and it comes directly to the registrar's office and then gets evaluated from there. So a couple different things you can do.
Okay. Looks like we answered that one live already.
Mhm.
What is the process of declaring a pre-med track? Do you have any helpful tips?
Mhm. So we don't specifically have a pre-med major or track that is declared. So typically what happens is we have a Blackboard course that students can get enrolled in. They can fill out a survey and you can see it on that pre-professional advising page and they're also on the pre-med pages on our site where they go to a survey, they complete that with some just basic information, kind of what they're interested, because sometimes students are interested in pre-med, sometimes they want to do PT or OT or nursing, but they're not really sure which yet. They kind of indicate all of their preferences. We have a Blackboard course that walks them through what are the requirements for all those things? What does that look like? How do you plan for that? And then when they complete that first portion of it, then they get assigned to a pre-med or get connected to the pre-professional advisor in health and pre-health essentially, right? Anything that kind of is under that umbrella. So the best thing for them to do in order to kind of indicate to us that they have that interest and want to pursue that track is to fill out that survey so we can get them connected and get them the resources that they need to make sure that they've got all those pieces, parts put together. So it's not something necessarily they have to declare, it's just something that they need to get connected with, and they can do that by filling out that survey.
Are students required to meet with their pre-major advisor before
Mm.
registration every semester beyond their first year?
So no, there is no specific requirement. In your first year, you have three meetings essentially with with their faculty advisor, a student does. So they have one right at orientation, one in the, let's say they start in the fall, one in the fall, and one in the spring. At the start of the spring, they have one right at the start of the spring semester, one in the spring, and then one again in the fall, required. After that, it's really, up to their advisor and them how they want to engage before registration. It's always really helpful to check in at some point for both the advisor and the student, but it's not really technically required for them to do it at that point. They will. I think I would say most of our students engage in some sort of resource, or sometimes they find a faculty they've taken a class with that they really click with. They go to office hours and engage with advising that way. We have formal advising here set up on campus, but there are lots of ways that students engage in advising in all kinds of different avenues, whether that's peer-to-peer or with a faculty instructor that's teaching a course, or you all as, supporters, or us as staff, right? There's lots of ways that students engage in getting that information. And so we give them that structure and we give them that resource specifically because they need it. But then also there's lots of different avenues that as they get to be a junior or senior, sometimes they do that kind of more informal advising that happens for them, along the way. But I encourage them, have somebody, again, they check their degree works, have somebody in a capacity to understand requirements, check their degree works, and that is typically who they're assigned to make sure that they're still in good shape. Not necessarily always their best friend, although helpful. Always good to have another set of eyes on that, from a requirement-oriented way.
For sure. Okay. Good question. Is DegreeWorks accessible to parents?
That is a great question. It is if you work with your student to view that together. So it's not something that you would have access to as a parent or a family member or supporter, but it is something I think it's worth having a discussion with your student if that's something they want to kind of sit down and go over with you, if that feels like it's something you want to work on together. So again, one more avenue to have that discussion with your students about kind of where they're at and what that looks like for them and what is the best way to support them. Some really enjoy going through that like checkbox, right? Like they want to see all those little green check marks and they would really find that helpful. And others, need your support in different ways and aren't necessarily geared towards that degree works part of things. So again, I think it's something that is a helpful conversation point and certainly something you could view together because students have access to that.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up there. I know we have a few questions outstanding, but Megan, you answered lots of questions, and there are lots of wonderful resources on the William and Mary website and the Advising Center's website. Any last pieces of advice for families as they support their students through another round of course registration?
Yeah. But just, I mean, not necessarily any tips or tricks more than I said, but just a thank you. Thank you for helping the students navigate at really any point, but especially during this time, I think is especially helpful for you all to really just be there as their support system and to let them know that like you'll help them figure it out. So thank you for being on our team because we spend a lot of time doing that too, right? Encouraging students like, you got this. They're smart, they're capable, and we just need to help them, get where they're going. So thank you all, and thank you all for being part of today too. I really appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you, Megan. And thank you,
Yeah.
families, for helping our students explore and encouraging that exploration and whatever path they may go down as they're using Path to register for courses. And thank you to the Advising Center for all of the wonderful resources that they offer to support our students through academic planning. So thank you, families. This session was recorded. It will be available here in just a few days, and I will see you on the next one. Goodbye, everybody.
Take care.